something we had done some years ago, we began to do, which was to have y'all come up here, if you would be willing, and share your testimonies, we call it. You kind of given your life, and you give us a snapshot of who you are and what God did when he T-boned your life. Amen. And the changes that came, because it's the focus, a testimony needs to focus on him. What did he do? How did he take the old you and make you the new you? Not the perfect new you, but the new you that now has him in your life and makes a real difference. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Jesus entered your life and things changed. So it's very encouraging when we hear that from one another, isn't it? So the person who's going to share this morning, and I've asked her to share, is Sara Carstensen. So I'm going to ask you to give her your attention as she shares what I sure have come to understand as a remarkable testimony. Okay? Would you welcome Sara? All yours.
Hi, good morning. There, can we hear? Okay. As Pastor Scott said, my name is Sara Carstensen, but I was born with the name Yoon Obun in Seoul, Korea in 1976. So if you do the math, it means I'm just a couple years shy of my 50th birthday. I was born to a Christian couple in Seoul, South Korea. I was the fifth daughter in a family with 4 older sisters. And back then, Korea was still recovering from war and occupation, and the focus was on building up the number of men in society. So this meant that having male children was considered crucial for families, and female children were considered misfortunate and expensive. So having survived the Japanese occupation, my parents and grandparents faced financial hardships. With 4 daughters already in the family, I was the 5th born daughter, and it was decided that I would be placed for adoption into a wealthy Korean home. Despite the immense pain it caused them, they made the tough decision to place me into the hands of an adoption agency. But on that very next day, they returned to the adoption agency to plead for me to be given back to them. But my birth parents were informed that it was not possible, as I had already been marked for an adoption by another family. Unbeknownst to them, I was to be placed in a home halfway around the world in the heart of the United States in the town of Sturgis. But first, I was to spend 3 months without nurturing parents in an orphanage, where, through the kindness of the Almighty, I was well looked after. When I was just 3 months old, Dick and Ginger Carstensen, these are my parents, welcomed me into their loving embrace, gave me the name Sarah Ione. As the youngest of 3 adopted siblings, I joined my older Native American sister, Becca, who's here with us. And just for your knowledge of my family, she is currently the president of Sturgis City Council. She's the vice president of South Dakota Federation of Republican Women. She is the Native American liaison for Senator Thune in tribal outreach. She's right here. It's my sister. And I joined my older Caucasian brother, Mark Carstensen, who is the current mayor of Sturgis and has been for the last 12 years. Welcome, Mark and his family. They're here. So I was a curious, creative, and highly opinionated child. You can ask my siblings about that. I wanted to be a leader and for my voice to be heard. But above all, I wanted to be understood. And despite receiving much affection from my parents, I couldn't shake the feeling that my Korean parents had never truly wanted me. And this was based on information that was given to my parents that as a newborn, I was left on the steps of a police station. And this had always left me with a sense of inadequacy and unworthiness, which led to decisions I'd later make and regret as an adult. My lifelong hobbies of piano and ballet began in my childhood. I was involved in gymnastics and in our church. but still felt like an outsider, not belonging anywhere, nor ever being truly accepted by my peers for who I was. But it was upon graduating high school, I took a trip to the country of my birth, alongside other Korean adoptees, which was the first time I actually felt understood. I eventually left Sturgis and pursued higher education in Minnesota, further explored my interests in my Korean heritage. Ultimately, I graduated with a degree in psychology, a minor in biology, but I was determined to connect with my roots. So I returned to Korea to teach English, and I prayed and prayed that this journey would lead me to uncover my story and reunite me with my birth family, which happened. So I met my birth family at a small park. The moment was joyful, but tearful, especially the tears of my mother, who had carried the pain of letting me go and never seeing me until that moment. And I couldn't help notice my father's hands, that we shared the same hands. Soon thereafter, my parents from Sturgis, they traveled all the way to Korea to meet my birth parents for the very first time. The evening was unforgettable, with both of my mothers looking into each other's eyes and with a hug that seemed to transcend time. My two mothers found gratitude and companionship in one another that was beyond words. One had carried me beneath her heart, and the other carried the hope of me within her. Their profound love and sacrifice had been poured into my being, and in that moment, a peace came over all. Meanwhile, my fathers embraced with much gratitude and quietly acknowledged their honorable and dutiful roles as fathers. This was a moment that will always hold a special place in my heart. My story seemed to go full circle up until that point, until I met my own children. So without going into too many details, I was married twice before. One husband had issues with alcoholism and infidelity, and the second husband had issues with substance abuse and mental disorders. I had 2 children with my first husband and 2 children with my second husband, including my beloved baby, Willow Song. So shortly after I was married to my second husband, I became pregnant with Willow. However, after just 2 months into the pregnancy, we learned that she was affected by trisomy 18. It's a chromosomal abnormality that would lead to her death shortly after her birth. The strain of carrying an ailing child for 9 months, it took a significant toll on my physical health. It caused complications that it almost claimed my life. Sadly, our beloved Willow Song was called home by God just half a day before her birth, leaving a void that felt impossible to fill. In that hospital room, the silence was deafening, and my arms felt emptier than any mother should ever have to bear. It was an unfair and heartbreaking experience that plunged me into a unique and solitary grieving process like no other. Without my family around and without knowing Jesus like I do now, I felt entirely alone in my sorrow. This grief and sorrow led my husband and myself to seek a community of people that could help us to heal. Unbeknownst to me, we were led straight into a cult where we lived for 6 months. Fortunately for us, we were able to get out of this, but the aftermath was long-term damage to me and my kids and trust in my marriage, and ultimately, this, among many other unsavory things, led to separation and divorce in my second marriage. So my life took a big change when I began delving deeper into the message of Jesus. Around 3 years ago, I recommitted to Jesus, to the gospel, and found the truth that had previously eluded me. As soon as I gained this newfound understanding, my breath was taken away. In a moment of both shame and gratitude, I found myself falling face first onto the ground, overwhelmed by the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross and the presence he has maintained in my life from the time of being an orphan baby to now. It is a true blessing and honor that he chose to rescue me from my complete and utter mess, as I had strayed far from the right path and wandered aimlessly in the wilderness for a really long, extended period of time. Yet now I can say I finally reached my destination, and for that, I'm eternally grateful. So approximately 2.5 years ago, my friend Chris Ellingson recommended a Taekwondo class here in Rapid City. As I was in search of a church to attend, Chris and her daughter had recently earned their black belts, and the class just so happened to be taught by our very own Pastor Scott, who has an extensive knowledge and history within Korean culture. Both Chris and I were interested in speaking the truth, supporting President Trump, so she suggested Landmark. She said, our pastor taught the truth in a sea of churches that succumbed to the lies. So enthusiastically, I began attending Taekwondo classes with my son, Bae, who's over here. Fell in love with the class and reconnecting with Korean culture, but most importantly, found a church home, all of you. Upon the arrival at Landmark, Monty and Rita Madison, they warmly greeted me, took me under their wing, and have loved and supported my spiritual journey with the Lord, as well as my children wholeheartedly. I'm deeply grateful for them, and my utmost gift to them is my unwavering love and gratitude. So God blessed me with a new creative business, helping local businesses thrive. And my sister and I started a documentary series entitled Adopt Shine, a series that will interview all sides of the adoption story: adoptees, birth parents, adopted children, adopted parents. And of course, this project will be devoted to God's kingdom, for it is He who adopted us into His loving arms, and it is He who makes the impossible possible for His children whom He loves. And I'll leave you with this scripture that has come alive to me like never before. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. And that's 2 Corinthians 5:17. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sarah, for being transparent and sharing your heart and pointing to the Lord.